I'm very happy to present our next speaker. He's Mr. Alain. He is from Vitality Health. Vitality Health, probably you would have seen their logo on the boundary walls whenever India visits UK for a cricket match. And they're present in 40 countries and have millions of members. They are a global firm which has a bigger impact and a much more larger impact in terms of having more geographies, having more regulatory authorities being satisfied with their product, and engaging with varied types of people on the health insurance space. Mr. Alain is a senior vice president. He has worked across the globe, even in China, I guess, with Pingan, and he's here to talk about the impact of Vitality on the insurance companies across the globe. Over to Mr. Alain. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's really exciting to be in a place surrounded by so much innovation, so many creators, really experimenting with lots of new ideas about how to you bring insurance concepts together. I'm not going to do a demo. I'm not going to talk about technology. What I actually have been asked to present about is the idea of what it takes to bring some of these behavior change programs into an insurance context. What can they do, and what are our learnings across 40 countries about how these programs actually work? I mean, I look around, even today, we see folk who are trying to change behavior, people who are trying to give rewards, people who focus on health and wellness. You know, my fundamental question is the one that applies from an insurance perspective. How do you get value? What activities do you reward? How do you ensure that the program you're developing actually makes sense in the insurance context? So, who are we? For those of you who don't know Vitality, or perhaps have only seen us on the cricket branding or the soccer branding, I would argue we're the OG of behavior change programs. You know, we've been around since the 1990s. We invented this program in Discovery in South Africa, linked to health insurance, about 94, 95. Since then, we've taken this program internationally. We have about 40 million people on some version of a Vitality program somewhere in the world. We have a sort of a marquee brand of insurance partners that we work with. And as I said, we've been doing this for 25 years. So there are a couple of core insights around how to make programs like this work. It's possible that you can get a little carbon copy that says, hey, for 10,000 steps, you get a couple of dollars off on your insurance premium. In our mind, that's a very superficial understanding of what the fundamental intent is of insurance or behavior change. So what does a program like this entail? So there are a number of features. In our opinion, what Vitality is it's scientifically backed. There's over 50 papers on the impact of Vitality, what it does from a selection point of view, behavior change point of view, claims impact point of view. Increasingly, we're working to deeper and deeper levels of personalization because that's what you need in order to drive engagement. In the 1990s, the concept of a lovable mobile experience wasn't that relevant. Clearly today, that's a basic bread and butter of what you need to be able to do. We believe very strongly in the importance of the rewards and having aspirational rewards, but also having different designs of rewards. And I'll touch on that a little bit later. You need incredibly powerful data capabilities in order to enable all of this. Your technology platform needs to be brilliant. And of course, we are proud of the fact that we've got this vast global background. And what it means for us is that we can get to a new market, and I'll give you a sense of it. We can get to a new market, and someone from Germany will say, hey, your program can work everywhere else in the world, but us Germans are different. The Ecuadorians will say the same thing. The Chinese will say the same thing. And no doubt if I work with anyone here in India, you'll have some reason why Indians are different to everyone else in the rest of the world. That's true, right? But there are also a lot of similarities. And one of the things that we can bring out of this global experience is we can draw analogies and parallels, and we say, yes, we've seen that type of benefit design in some other place. It sort of works. It sort of doesn't. Here are some of the things that you need to bring on board in terms of designing your program. So we'd argue this global acceptance is one of our ticks in terms of credibility. The other one is the scientific papers. So over 50 of these many of these are available in the public domain. And we spend a lot of time trying to understand all the fundamental questions which your actuaries or your ministers or whomever will ask about whether or not a program like this can actually produce underlying fundamental design, and of course what the value is. I don't have time to talk to all of these, but there is a lot of work here. All right, so why did we invent Vitality? So back in the day, there were many pressures on us as a business in the early 90s, but our founder really pointed to the one thing that he believed was fundamentally true, and I think is increasingly true. A lot of the basic premise of insurance pricing is that you can figure out what the risk is of a policyholder or a group of policyholders when they come on board, right? But you've got very little ability to adjust that risk understanding over time. And in a standard insurance book, those people who perceive themselves to be better risk are slightly more incentivized to drop off a program, and those people who are slightly worse risk are more incentivized to stay on because they get better value for money. And of course, over time, that problem gets worse. And in health insurance, we talk about that as an actuarial death spiral, very dramatic, but fundamentally that's the point. You raise pressure. What we believe, though, and we know, and I'm sure everyone in this room can buy into the concept, risk is not a static thing. So you could underwrite someone at age 30 and say, hey, this is his demographics, this is his income, this is his state of health. That person can change their state of health, right? Over time, they can get worse and they can get better. And we know, and there's many versions of this type of statistic, that when it comes to healthcare, there's probably 4 behaviors, right, which drive 4 diseases, and those 4 diseases are responsible 60% of the deaths in the worldwide, and a similar number if you think about it in terms of healthcare claims costs, right? So in other words, if you can target physical activity, excessive alcohol, smoking, and eating, and you look at that over time, 10, 20 years, you're facing a fundamentally different risk profile as what you started off with. Never mind the combined impacts of selection and selective withdrawal and all those kind of factors, which excite my actuarial colleagues. Sorry, I'm an actuary. I'll make actuary jokes this whole presentation. So we all know this. On one level or another, we all know better behavior is good for us, but we also know it's really hard. It's hard to encourage people to change behavior. We find it hard ourselves. And there's a whole range of behavioral economics that we've been focused on for the last 20 years of trying to understand what it is that drives people to make these changes. I'll touch on this a little later, but if you're really going to design a program like this, you've really got to get your head around things like behavioral economics, the idea that everyone thinks they're healthier than they actually are, right? So people are very poor at evaluating their own state of health. We know people, discount future rewards. The benefit of going to gym, I will only see in 20 years' time. But the benefit of eating a slice of cake right now is super apparent. It's delicious, right? So people discount that. And similarly, actually, when they go and get healthcare, it's easier to take a pill than it is to think of exercise, right? So now you've got to think, how do you overcome those? One of the most powerful ways to overcome that time differential is by giving people rewards. Okay, but now if you're an insurance guy, you say, how much? What rewards are effective? What behaviors should I be focusing on? And that's really fundamentally where we've spent a lot of our science and a lot of our focus. And it is hard, right? So if someone comes to you and says, hey, I've got newfangled technology X, it'll change the risk profile of Y, you're going to, as an insurer, say, how much should I pay for this? How much benefit am I going to get in my insurance book? How do I convince my actuaries to pay for this, or my CEO, or whomever? And those questions are important, and we actually need to solve them because you could be rewarding the wrong behaviors. Okay. So our view was always that, yes, we speak a lot about the idea of being principle-driven. We think that changing behavior is good. It's good for our customers. Obviously, it's good for us as an insurer because it brings down our claims cost, but also good for society. And we fundamentally believe that if we can create value in an insurance company, we've actually got to pass some of that value back fundamentally to the policyholders. And that, in a way, is actually what funds the rewards. We see benefits throughout the insurance chain. So today, Discovery writes these 4 lines of business primarily. My focus is predominantly on health insurance. We write a lot of health insurance, life insurance. A lot of our global partners are life insurers. We also write motor insurance and long-term savings. We've also got similar ideas. Behavior change can lead to long-term benefits. But just on the top 2, when we think about how to justify a behavior change program, we don't only think about making people healthy, because we actually have to realize that our counterparties in an insurance company are really looking for increases in sales. And you can do that by changing the sales message around wellness or health rather than sickness. You can impact selection. You can attract a better class of customers. Obviously, we can change behavior. That, in fact, is the bread and butter. And we also have an enormous impact on selective lapsation. In fact, the guy who was supposed to be speaking now has a topic that seems to be very much linked to this. So I can't wait to see his topic. And fundamentally, we get to a point where we have seen across our businesses quite significant returns on investing in these programs. But over 25 years, 40 different countries, we've also seen and made a lot of mistakes. And those are as valuable for learning. When you give too much away in a reward, where you incentivize the wrong behavior, where you reward people for doing exercise, but they would have done the exercise anyway, right? Those are problems. Those are wasted value. And increasingly, our focus today is how to get those kinds of sums better. Okay, so where we stand today, we provide a Vitality platform to many of our partners around the world. We also provide consulting services and various other things. Today, our platform really aspires to do all of this. So an underlying AI platform that focuses on utilizing our enormous data across multiple different markets. We believe very strongly in the importance of stratifying your population, your entire population. I'll talk about in South Africa, we have 3.5 million customers on our health insurance solution. I can tell you now that every single one of those 3.5 million customers is in a risk bucket. We understand their claims profile, their clinical profile, behavioral factors that we've been able to understand with their engagement with our rewards platform, and we understand what type of incentives will work for them. We get into a dynamic recommender. Now, this is where kind of some of the AI is really coming to its fore. So what we really want to do is we want to answer the question of saying, for any one person, this John, who is a 23-year-old person, maybe pre-diabetic, what are the most important and the most valuable actions we could get him to do in order to change the fundamental risk profile? Those actions are obviously very different to a 60-year-old who has recently come out of some surgery, for example. Right? And so we stratify our entire population into this environment, and then we try and match their profile to an incentive and a reward to try and get them to that behavior. So this is all the maths and the science, but we also recognize that when we present an action or a recommendation to a customer, it's got to be super simple. So our philosophy very much is along the lines of saying we'll give you some rewards for the next best action. You know, that concept, I think for those of you who work in banking or retail, it's a pretty familiar concept. Present you with 3 options of 3 simple actions with a very clear and well-defined reward. And this is our strategy right now to maximize engagement and also to maximize our ability to spend on rewards. Why do you need to spend on rewards? Because, let me talk through those quickly just to speak to the data. So, across the world, 25 years. In South Africa, 20 years of longitudinal, fully coded medical data linked to behavior, activity, shopping, you name it. We understand that if you can tweak a risk curve in a particular way, what impact that has on claims, what impact that has on mortality. We have now presence all over the market, so we can understand some of the differentials. We work quite strongly with our partners on a data subsidization model where we say, if you only have this type of data, we can supplement it from data from another country, but obviously the idea is to learn quickly. It's better to start with some data than no data, but very quickly you want to get to localized data. Just a couple of things. We record something like 100 million healthy activities per month, right? So that, really is a sense of saying what sort of activities are happening in different places. Okay, so that fuels, that's the fuel, the rocket fuel for the AI engine. Then we get into that segmentation model, which I spoke about earlier. So same type of idea, we think about each of the dimensions of the data for each of the customers, which are available in which markets, where do we need to subsidize? And we need to ask questions by saying, hey, if we can get, Mary, the 40-year-old with 2 kids, to do more exercise, how much is that worth in a claims uplift environment? And those are the types of questions we do, and we try and plot them out for all of our members so that we can understand the most valuable activities. Now our model, this is a really important one, and I think actually in the last few years have been one of our key breakthroughs. What we've realized is in order to recommend an activity, you need to understand the value of that activity. So for me, Alan, I'm diabetic. I am. I got a recommendation just the other day that the most important activity for me is to get my HbA1c checked, because I haven't done that in over 12 months, and actually to go get a foot checkup. Okay, I'm giving a lot away. But now those are good activities because I'm a close to 50 diabetic, and those are actually activities we want to reward. And the model has spat out that predictively that's the most important impact and the most valuable activity I could be doing. Friend of mine with no diabetes, they're probably telling him to train for his next marathon or some other activity, I don't know. But the point is, we build on this value of putting a value on each activity, multiplying it by a propensity model, which is more of a behavior understanding. So what sort of behavior, what's the probability if you give me a recommendation that I'll actually do it, and then how relevant it is. And we try and build up habits out of our customers to repeat activities. And as I mentioned up front, it's more valuable for us to get someone to start doing exercise, so we'll reward that person higher for someone who's not doing exercise than reward a person who's already doing exercise to do more exercise. And so we need to have that level of sophistication in our models. This is like a day and a half presentation on its own right, so I'm really summarizing it, but that's very much the direction of where we're going today. I mentioned up front, we think very heavily around the design of rewards. So, to give you one example, loss aversion. People often respond better to losing a reward than the idea of getting a reward. So if I tell you that you've got a discount now, but you might lose it at the end of the year, that can be a more powerful motivating factor for many people than saying, hey, if you do this stuff now, you'll get a discount at the end of the year. But then you've also got to get your communication of that reward very clear. And for us, that's where the LLMs are really starting to use. We can test different ways of communicating rewards to different communities with different profiles, and see how different types of rewards engage people. For us, that's one of the most exciting applications of LLMs, the language capabilities to test multiple different designs of communicating incentives. But each of these 7 things that I have here are different behavioral economic concepts. They're different ways to design rewards, and we work a lot with our customers or partners around what a program design needs to look like, how to optimize for the outcomes they want. Okay, all of it's wrapped up. We provide exciting rewards. We work closely with partners. On our platform, these are different designs of rewards that people can use. Short-term rewards, big rewards, discounts, obviously work with employers. Sometimes people take rewards in the forms of premium discounts. Other times it's hotel stays or flights. Each of these have different models. In the US, our business is primarily to help insurance companies design their own reward platforms, and then they have different budgets to apply for these things. In the UK, what we've realized, and the reason I pulled up this slide, was the Vitality has helped us change the way that we sell our health insurance product. Everyone else is using sober blues or gold colors, and their branding pictures are about people in hospital. It's got a very serious type of tone to it. We believe very strongly that we want to excite our clients through the presence of rewards. We want to have a positive message around health and wellness. It's enabled us to market in different ways. We're very focused on quite big headline benefits. So this top one, for example, you'll see some version of it in the tube stations, underneath Piccadilly, for example. Very much a sort of a very strong, powerful branding presence, because we really want to have a conversation with our customers about genuinely being healthy. We're there to improve your life. We've had spectacular results. This is one out of a huge deck of slides. what I wanted to focus on here, and the reason I picked this one, is that when we get right down into the pricing issue, we can say on mortality or healthcare costs for a particular demographic group who are participating in a particular way, we can get a prediction on what that group benefits from in terms of activity. Now, I'll just give you the strong example. For most people, 45 to 65, those people who are healthy, they are actively engaged in exercise, can actually have up to a 60% lower mortality risk. Now, that can be causal, it can be selection. We can have a long debate around this if anyone really wants to, but it's a very dramatic difference. If you can identify those people who are engaged in exercise versus that group who are not, you can find very, very strong differentiators in mortality. And what's also really important, and this was a published paper from a few years ago, we focus quite a lot on the idea that you can extend people's lives, you increase their lifespan, but actually, really importantly, we like to talk about health span. So how many years can you live a healthy life? You don't want to live longer in a state of illness. You actually want to have a longer health span, be healthier for longer. And so that's also part of the analytics that we work on. The little icons represent the kind of activities that people can do in order to change their profile. This type of data, obviously some of it is confidential, some of it we've published, but certainly this high-level study is available. Okay, so what's my closing message? I was here really to talk about what's the takeout from all of this. Well, there's my answer. So here's the takeout. In order to get this thing right, you really, it's a deep intrinsic philosophy from your business. You've got to fundamentally believe that you want to change people's health and wellness. And then it becomes a technology problem, it becomes a strategy problem, it becomes a UX problem, it becomes a marketing problem. You've got to get the actuaries to buy into the long-term risk profiles. So it's really an end-to-end business strategy if you truly want to do this. And the thing that I've seen fail most often in these kinds of product designs is people hand the stuff over to the marketing department and say, hey, you guys, figure out how to integrate this rewards program and make it a sales gimmick. If you do that, you're not going to do it effectively. You're not going to make a fundamental difference in your business. And this is very much the core of what we do. So I'd better wrap up there. I was going to leave with one slide, which was just a couple of cool quotes. But thanks very much for your time, and I really appreciate it.